So my name is Martin Adams. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CODEC. I'm going to speak for 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to have a few questions off the back of it. So can you hear me okay? Yep, great. I'm actually going to start very, very big. The internet, hey? It was supposed to make marketing extremely easy. It was supposed to connect us with our audiences. What it actually did was it fragmented those audiences out into networks that it was incredibly difficult for brands to understand. These are, it could be networks, could be amateur K-poppers in Korea, it could be people into grime in London or drillcore in Chicago. The point is that we don't have these kind of demographic, really convenient networks anymore. They're all split and spread around the world. Now, as I said, all based on interest. And that is a really, really big problem for brands. Because if you want to win on the internet, you need to acknowledge its fundamental nature. The internet is made up of interconnected networks of computers, of people, of interests, of everything. And brands need to recruit from these networks. They need to be able to grow and basically not just stay stagnant with the same consumer base. So, they haven't really been able to do that, especially big brands haven't been able to do that. In fact, what they've had to do is to buy the companies that may have those little networks around them, often D2C companies. But that's not sustainable. Not everyone is Unilever either, and therefore it's often just simply not available at all. So really what we do is, as a company, CODEC helps you recruit new audiences. We identify different cultural networks that exist across the web. So if we think within the last week alone, we've been able to identify a tribe that we call Fortnitelies. Now, these are people that are playing that particular first-person shooter game, Fortnite, and they're obsessed with it. And all of their internet and network behaviors show us that they're obsessed with it. So how do we do that? Well, we use our award-winning technology. We've been recognized as having the best AI in marketing in Europe by CognitionX. And basically, we look at online content. So we move away from the analysis of keywords, which social listening works with, and we actually profile and classify millions of pieces of third-party image, text, and video content across the web every single day. Because we knew that if we could classify content, we'd be able to get sort of core creative intelligence out of it. We'd be able to say, what is the content about? We'd be able to say, what format is it? Where is it? Who's interacting with it? What tones of voice does it use? Things like that. Because we knew that if we could show you what was in the content, we'd be able to show you, essentially, where the networks were, what the people interacting with that content cared about, what creative would resonate with them versus not. And we also knew that you'd be able to distribute that in a GDPR-compliant way, because it's very, very tricky now to track individuals across the web with cookies, so you need to be able to buy against the content that they're interacting with, buy against the URLs and the domains that they're interacting with. And that's exactly the sort of intelligence that we have. So we started with this core belief that there was a limitation in demographics. So here's good old Prince Charles, and here's Ozzy Osbourne. Now, they have a lot of the same overlaps in terms of demographics. But if it comes down to what we're going to make for them, and if we acknowledge the fact that what they will see is a function of what people in their network interact with, we realize that, yes, we can advertise based on demographics, but we don't know what to actually make in the first place. And given that we're in a content world, really, now, rather than a pure advertising one, that's a pretty fundamental problem. So we need to recognize that the networks they interact with will care about different things, and that the networks are a method to distributing out to them, and also a way of gaining intelligence as to what's going to work with them in the first place. So we believe that you need to understand and have that context, and that content, if you can understand it at scale, is exactly the way to do that. So I won't dwell on that. I'll give you an example. So Nespresso came to us, they said, look, we're like many companies, we need to recruit new audiences away from just coffee lovers. They knew that the pods, the IP on their pods was disappearing. They knew that George Clooney was also disappearing. So they said, okay, what are we going to do? They looked at their segmentation, and how helpful was it? It wasn't very helpful. In fact, it was a bunch of 2D, non-dynamic, non-updating, product-based insight. It was all around how people talked about coffee. Their social listening was all around keywords to do with coffee. So they couldn't do anything interesting. They couldn't recruit new people, or they couldn't talk about new areas. So, you know, that's coffee stains. It's Nespresso coffee stains, obviously. But basically, that stuff gets out of date very, very quickly, very dusty. So they came to us, they said, we understand coffee, but we want to also understand people within sustainability so that we can enter into that space. Show us the networks that exist within sustainability. For some people, it's climate change marches. For some people, it's, as we'll see with the example here, for some people, it's upcycling. So it's not recycling, it's upcycling. It's through their content interactions, we were able to see that this particular audience liked to take old fashion items and make them kind of new and recycle them or upcycle them. We could see that there was a particular interest in sustainability in the form of getting a fixie bike and cycling to work rather than, for example, taking the tube or something like that. So a much gentler, softer form of sustainability for this particular tribe. And then we were able to see outside of their interactions with sustainability what else they cared about. Because, of course, these are three-dimensional people. So they also cared about sort of indoor houseplants and botanics and modernism and interior design. And we could see that all, not through the keywords that they used, but their interactions with content. So what did Nespresso do? They reverse engineered what the audience actually cared about, and they made something which appealed to it. So here we can see the bike. We can see the pods that have been sustainably upcycled into that bike. We can see the kind of modernism and the nice interior design and the houseplants and everything else. So there we go. Very short, but very effective. This is basically what Netflix are doing on a larger scale, but for branded content. So the results were really, really impressive. And you had Sophie from Nespresso literally saying, we can't get this from TGI, we can't get this from Mosaic, it's static, it doesn't update over time. That's exactly what our platform does, and hopefully it's helpful as a result. So we're not another ad tech platform. We sit far, far, far upstream. We try and make sure that what the intelligence we get from content feeds into every single downstream decision that you make. And that's really all I want to say. Beyond the fact that we work with the biggest brands in the world, we're increasingly keen to try and work with their partners. We work with these brands across the world, and you know, we're a trusted way of understanding these new audience networks that you can grow into and actually making things that they care about. So yeah, thank you very much.
That was fantastic. Great, thank you very much. Just one quick question. What struck me quite early on is there's that very interesting dynamic to sort of look at like the future of search, right, and kind of what it's going to entail. You look at Google's core offering, which is all based around keywords and SEO.
Yep.
And yet you have platforms that are sort of are here with us now, whether that's voice, and I think slightly further forwards, like visual search technologies.
Yep.
How important has that been to you in the creation of this?
So I think this whole question of moving beyond search to essentially fundamentally discovery puts brands in a very, very, very difficult position, because unless you search for Duracell batteries, then Amazon or Google can essentially just give you any batteries. So the actual power and significance of the brand is in decline because discovery is moving into more exciting, ambient, quicker methods than actual keyword search. So I think that maybe this answers the question. Essentially, we as brands now need to make sure that we are part of the discovery process and that what we build is designed with discovery in mind. Now, the way that we will continue to discover in terms of social networks and content is through our networks. It's based on what my friends interact with on Facebook and Twitter, etc., that the algorithm surfaces what I actually see. So unless I can understand what my friends and people in my tribe or my network interact with, and unless a brand can understand that, there is absolutely no way of them being part of the sort of discovery trends that you're talking about.
Fantastic. Right. Well, that's all we have time for.
Right.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.